The mansion sat quiet on the hillside, its wide windows overlooking the valley below, though little sunlight ever reached the private wing where Daniel Reyes spent most of his days. 6 months had passed since the car accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down. 6 months since the CEO, once known for his energy and quiet determination, had retreated almost entirely from the world he'd spent decades building. He had gone through 4 nurses already, each departing within weeks, worn down by his sharp dismissals, his refusal to engage in physical therapy, his quiet insistence that he needed no help at all, despite clear evidence to the contrary. Vivian Hale arrived on a gray Monday morning, her 3rd week working for a private care agency after transitioning from hospital nursing to home care. She had heard about Daniel's reputation from colleagues: difficult, withdrawn, prone to firing staff who pushed too hard or, alternatively, staff who didn't push hard enough. "You're new," Daniel said flatly, barely glancing up from the window as she entered his study that first morning. "How long do you give yourself before you quit?" "I don't plan on quitting," Vivian said simply, setting her bag down calmly near the door. Daniel scoffed quietly. "That's what they all say." Over the following days, Vivian settled into a careful, professional routine, managing his medications, monitoring his physical health, gently encouraging the physical therapy exercises his doctors had prescribed, exercises Daniel consistently refused with sharp, dismissive irritation. "I don't need therapy," he said one afternoon, waving away her gentle suggestion. "I need everyone to stop pretending this is something that gets fixed with enough effort." "I'm not pretending anything," Vivian said evenly, unbothered by his sharp tone. "I'm simply doing my job, which includes encouraging exercises that could genuinely improve your quality of life." "My quality of life isn't your concern," Daniel snapped. "Actually," Vivian said calmly, "it is. That's literally what I'm here for." Daniel studied her carefully, clearly unaccustomed to staff who remained unshaken by his sharp dismissals. "Most people quit by now," he admitted, almost begrudgingly. "I'm not most people," Vivian said simply, continuing calmly with her tasks. Weeks passed, Vivian's consistent, unwavering presence gradually becoming a quiet fixture within Daniel's carefully guarded isolation. She never pushed too hard, never coddled him either, simply remaining steady, professional, and quietly present despite his continued resistance. One evening, following a particularly difficult day of physical discomfort, Daniel finally allowed some of his carefully maintained composure to crack. "Everyone I built this company with disappeared the moment I stopped being useful," he admitted quietly, staring out toward the darkening valley below. "Business partners, so-called friends, even people I considered family. All gone within months." Vivian remained quiet for a moment, allowing the weight of his admission space to settle naturally. "That must have been incredibly isolating," she said gently. "It was," Daniel admitted. "So I stopped expecting anyone to stay. Easier that way." "I understand why you'd think that," Vivian said honestly. "But I'm not going anywhere, Daniel. Not because it's my job, though it is, but because you deserve consistency, even when you're convinced you don't." Daniel studied her carefully, something shifting quietly behind his guarded expression. "Why do you actually care? Genuinely, I mean." Vivian considered the question thoughtfully. "Because everyone deserves dignity, especially during their hardest moments," she said simply. "And because giving up on people the moment they become difficult isn't something I'm willing to do, professionally or otherwise." Something in her steady, unwavering honesty seemed to settle uncomfortably, yet meaningfully, within Daniel's carefully guarded resistance. Slowly, gradually, he began engaging more consistently with his physical therapy exercises, small, incremental progress building steadily over the following weeks. "You're still here," he remarked one afternoon, several weeks later, genuine surprise evident in his tone as she arrived for another routine morning. "I told you I would be," Vivian said simply, unpacking her bag calmly. Daniel allowed himself a rare, genuine smile. "Most people don't keep promises like that." "I'm not most people," Vivian repeated, echoing her earlier words with a small, knowing smile of her own. Over the following months, Daniel's physical progress continued steadily, his emotional isolation slowly softening alongside it. He began reconnecting cautiously with select business associates, eventually returning gradually to limited involvement within his company, guided carefully by newfound patience and humility that hadn't existed within him prior to the accident. During a quiet evening several months later, sitting comfortably in his study as autumn light filtered gently through the windows, Daniel finally addressed Vivian directly. "I want to thank you properly," he said. "For not giving up, even when I clearly wanted you to." Vivian smiled warmly. "You never actually wanted that," she said. "You just needed someone patient enough to see past what you were saying, toward what you actually needed." Daniel considered her words carefully, genuine gratitude settling clearly across his expression. "How did you know that?" "Experience," Vivian admitted. "And because everyone, no matter how convincingly they push people away, usually just wants someone willing to stay anyway." Daniel studied her thoughtfully. "You could have quit like everyone else. Would have been easier." "Easier isn't always better," Vivian said simply. "Sometimes the harder path is exactly the one worth choosing." As the conversation settled into comfortable silence, Daniel found himself reflecting quietly on the past several months, from bitter isolation to gradual, hard-won reconnection, grateful not simply for his physical progress, but for the quiet, unwavering consistency that had ultimately made that progress possible. "For what it's worth," he said finally, "you were right. About all of it." Vivian smiled gently, continuing her quiet, steady work without needing further acknowledgement. "I usually am," she said, a warm, teasing note lightening her otherwise calm demeanor. Daniel laughed, genuine and unguarded, a sound that hadn't echoed comfortably through the quiet mansion in longer than he could easily remember. As the evening settled comfortably around them, Daniel found himself deeply grateful, not for the difficult circumstances that had reshaped his life so dramatically, but for the quiet, steady presence that had refused, patiently and unwaveringly, to ever truly leave.